Hey everyone, welcome back to Inglebar. Now, I know I don't say this enough, so please, if you like this video or my other videos, subscribe to my channel. It's still a newish channel, and this is really the only way to help it grow big and strong. You can be its vitamins. Alright, with that out of the way, on tap today, I've got another edition of utterly pointless comparisons. I'll be looking at the arcade and Genesis/Megadrive versions of Double Dragon 2: The Revenge. And really, it's only the Megadrive version, since this game was not released for Sega's system outside of Japan. Here's an info comparison for both the arcade and Genesis hardware while I talk about the games a little bit. So Arcade Double Dragon 2 was released in 1988 and was essentially an upgrade kit for the original Double Dragon, and it kind of shows. It looks very similar to the first game. Some sections from the first game are basically entirely lifted from it and reused, just with some updated coloring and design. So it's really kind of a lazy sequel, and disappointing that there's so little innovation or actually new stuff in it. One thing they did change is the way the game plays. So we no longer have punch, kick, and jump buttons. Now you have attack left, attack right, and jump buttons. So it plays a little bit more like Renegade from that perspective. Now, I hated this control setup at first when it was new, but it is something that, if you have enough experience with it, you'll get good at it and it'll become second nature. So it just takes practice to get used to it, really. One thing that changed pretty significantly is the enemy AI and the way they move around you and attack. So it's a lot harder this time, the game's a bit smarter. And also, another thing that's a lot different is that the collision detection is significantly worse in this game than the original. You'll see there are a lot of times where you clearly hit enemies and it just doesn't register. It's decided that through some of their animation frames they're just invincible this time around, and that gets pretty frustrating. The Megadrive version was released roughly 2 years later and was developed by a company named Palsoft, and what a shoddy job they did with this game. What should have been a near-perfect arcade port on Sega's capable hardware instead is stuck with teeny tiny little characters, jerky motion, really laggy gameplay for some reason, and lots of other problems that you'll see as the footage comes up in a moment here. I mean, it's embarrassing how poorly done this game is. It's hard to believe that it actually got released in this state. It's really more like you're playing a beta. And the backgrounds are very plain also, in case I forget to mention that. Now, the one positive thing I do have to say about it, and it's a pretty big one, is they did a fantastic job on the music, and I'm not being sarcastic. Some of the songs are so good they actually sound better than the arcade original, which is stark contrast to Accolade's port of Double Dragon 1, which actually came out after this game. So for recording notes, I really don't have anything special to say here. I just played each game all the way through, and that's that. Want to see it? Here it is! Enjoy! I'll be back afterwards for a quick moment. Okay, here we go. First up, the Megadrive/Genesis version is in a small window with tiny characters, and except for Willy, all the wrong characters are present for the opening. Enemy placement is wrong in the Genesis version, as you can see. Also, the backgrounds are really simplified. In the arcade version, you can kick the crates, logs, and other large throwing weapons. You can't do that in the Megadrive/Genesis version. You know what, I'm just gonna say Genesis from now on. Deal with it. Man, look how tiny O'Hara, this game's first Abobo-type character, is. And the boss, Burnov, is itty bitty teeny tiny on the Genesis version. He's also just standing there. He doesn't walk in and jump off the roof like he does in the arcade version. This is where things get interesting. This mission was redesigned in large part on the Genesis version to make it longer. Some of it is pretty annoying though, and you'll see what I mean. Oh, and that long-haired Abobo type's name is Bolo. The more you know. Yeah, so in the arcade version you can blow through this level real quick if you know what you're doing, and as you can see the layout is just about identical to Mission 2 from the first Double Dragon, which was super lazy. Here's a garbage part of the redesign. These conveyor belts suck, and it's tough to fight the enemies in this area. I could have done some things to clear them out a little faster, but you've got time to kill, right? And look how itty bitty teeny weeny Abore or Abor or whatever his name is in the Genesis version. Adorable. As in the first game, Mission 3 is the longest and broken up into 2 parts, although Part 2 is really short this time in both versions. This is the worst looking level on the Genesis version in my opinion. The backgrounds are bland and look at the little barns or houses or whatever those things are. On the Genesis, they have a straight on view. In the arcade, they're tilted slightly and much more detailed. Oh, this thing. It stinks. Stinks! On another note, Jeff, the enemy that is a palette swap of Billy and Jimmy with a different head, is missing entirely from the Genesis version for some reason. Weird. Another little note, the arcade game is way stricter on time than the original Double Dragon. When you continue, the timer starts over. There are definitely parts where you'll run out of time and die if you're not quick enough, and you'll see one here a little bit later. The Invade the Enemy's Base section this time around has just a few enemies and a boss. The Genesis version was redesigned slightly so you couldn't just knock enemies off the mountain. Boo! Say hello to the Mission 3 boss, Chin Taimei. Say goodbye to him too. Okay, last mission. One section of the Genesis version has been slightly redesigned towards the end to add extra enemies. The arcade game features a few more traps like the rolling bombs and particles shot out of the statue's eyes. It also has a much wider ladder. Usually I'm better at this part. Or Burnos. Yay. Did I mention they suck in the Genesis version? Another side note. The elbow smash in the Genesis version is practically useless because it basically has no range at all. Man, these jerks can sure take a long time to kill. If you set the difficulty to easy instead of normal, all the enemies will die in fewer knockdowns. Okay, here's the slightly extended portion of the Genesis game. And now, the final room. Another area that has been extremely miniaturized on the Genesis. Only a few fights left now. And there's Willy! Take that elbow, you girlfriend-killing bastard! Billy wasn't even tired of her yet! Oh, sorry. Was that too soon? She did only die about 25 minutes ago. The shadow fight at the end sucks in the arcade version. It's way too long and was clearly designed to eat as many quarters as possible. When the shadow dives underground, you have to get in the air to avoid its attack. It's not as bad in the Genesis version because it takes way fewer hits and knockdowns to kill in that one. So, the ending in the arcade, you get that picture in song. That's it. The ending on the Genesis, a few little segments of the boss fights from the missions. It's safe to say both endings are kinda garbage. What's that? Are you actually still there? You sat through that entire game? Whew, you must have been bored. I don't have too much to add to this one that I didn't already say during the video, so I'll throw this interesting little nugget in there. If you play this game on actual Megadrive hardware with a 6-button controller, it causes a weird controller delay that's not present when using a 3-button controller. So just something to be aware of if you ever track it down and want to play it on actual hardware. Now that brings this video to a close, my friends. So what did you think of either the arcade or Mega Drive versions of Double Dragon 2? Do you like these games? Do you think the port is treated unfairly or too harshly? Go ahead and sound off in the comments below. I'd love to hear your opinions. With that, I will say thanks for watching, and see me later.